The inspector's flashlight landed on Karen Voss's storage shed, and her face went white. 20 minutes earlier, she'd stood on my porch with a clipboard, calling my front lawn the ugliest patch of dirt in Brookstone Meadows. She wanted me fined $1,100 for 3 dead patches of grass. She never imagined the inspection she demanded would end with her own name on a violation notice, and 6 years of illegal dumping buried under her prize-winning flower beds. My name is Mark Delgado. 4 years ago, my wife Rachel and I bought a 3-bedroom colonial on Larkspur Court in Brookstone Meadows, a gated community 40 minutes outside Denver with manicured hedges, matching mailboxes, and a homeowners association that took its bylaws more seriously than most people take their taxes. We weren't rule breakers. We paid our dues on time, kept our trash cans out of sight, and trimmed our hedges every other Saturday like clockwork. Our daughter Emma had just started 2nd grade at the elementary school 2 blocks over, and for the first time in years, life felt settled, predictable, good. Karen Voss had been HOA president for 6 years running, re-elected every spring because nobody else wanted the headache of dealing with her. She lived at the end of our cul-de-sac in a house with the kind of landscaping you'd expect on a magazine cover, trimmed boxwoods, color-coordinated mulch, a lawn so green it looked airbrushed. She'd won the community's Yard of the Year award 4 years straight, and she made sure everyone knew it. Karen didn't just enforce the rules. She patrolled them, clipboard in hand, camera phone ready, treating every blade of grass out of place like a personal insult. I liked our street. I liked our neighbors, mostly retirees and young families who waved from their driveways and swapped tomato seedlings in the summer. Every 4th of July, the whole cul-de-sac gathered for a potluck in the Hendersons' driveway, and even Karen showed up, though she usually spent half the party quietly noting whose folding chairs were blocking the sidewalk. People joked about her, but carefully, always in whispers after she'd walked past. "Watch your grass height," someone would mutter. "Karen's on patrol." It was almost affectionate the way small towns talk about a strict schoolteacher. Nobody, including me, thought it was anything more than a personality quirk. A woman who cared too much about curb appeal, nothing sinister about it. What I didn't know that first ordinary Tuesday in April was that Karen had already circled my address twice that week in her inspection log. She was about to make my lawn her next crusade, and she had no idea how badly that crusade would backfire. It started with a certified letter. Dated April 9th, stamped with the Brookstone Meadows HOA seal, it cited me for landscape maintenance violation, Section 4. 2C, 3 dead patches of grass near the sidewalk, roughly the size of dinner plates, left over from a broken sprinkler head I'd already ordered a part to fix. The letter gave me 14 days to remediate or face a $200 fine. $200 for dead grass felt absurd, but I didn't want to fight. I called the irrigation company that same afternoon. They couldn't come out until the following Monday. I figured that was fine, 14 days was plenty of time. I even called the HOA's management company directly, a woman named Trish who juggled Brookstone Meadows along with 11 other communities. "Just so it's on record," I told her, "the sprinkler's already scheduled. I don't want 3 dead patches of grass turning into something bigger." "It shouldn't," Trish said. "Most of these resolve before the deadline. Just document everything." Document everything. I wrote that phrase on a sticky note and stuck it to the fridge, half joking with Rachel that I was treating a lawn citation like a court case. I had no idea yet how right that instinct would turn out to be. Karen didn't think so. On April 11th, she rang my doorbell at 7:40 in the morning, still in her walking clothes, clipboard tucked under one arm like a weapon. "Mr. Delgado," she said, not even a hello first, "I need to document the condition of your lawn for the file." "The sprinkler part is ordered," I told her. "It'll be fixed by the 14th like the letter says." She snapped 3 photos anyway, close enough that I could hear the shutter click twice on each patch. "The board takes curb appeal very seriously," she said. "This is the 4th property on this block I've had to write up this month." I remember thinking that was strange. 4 violations in 1 month on a street where everyone kept their yards nearly identical. But I let it go. I had a sprinkler part coming. I had no reason yet to suspect anything else was going on. The irrigation tech showed up that Monday, April 14th, fixed the head in 20 minutes, and by the 18th the dead patches were already showing green shoots. I photographed it myself, emailed the pictures to the HOA management company, and figured that was the end of it. It wasn't. On April 22nd, a second letter arrived. Same seal, same tone, but this one didn't mention the sprinkler at all. It cited continued landscape deterioration and attached photos, except the photos weren't of my repaired lawn. They were old. Dated, I later confirmed, from before the repair. The fine had jumped to $450. and the letter warned that failure to pay within 30 days would result in a lien against my property. That's when Rachel looked at me across the kitchen table and said the words that changed how I approached the whole situation. "Mark, I don't think this is about the lawn anymore." I met Karen at the mailbox cluster 3 days later purely by chance, my daughter Emma's hand in mine. I asked her calmly why the second letter used outdated photos. "The board reviewed your file," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "Sometimes documentation gets pulled from the original complaint." "The lawn's been fixed for 2 weeks," I said. "I emailed proof." "I'll look into it," she said, already walking away. "But the fine stands until the board votes to reverse it. Next meeting's in 3 weeks. 3 weeks for a lawn that had already grown back." I started asking around. Turned out I wasn't the only one. The Hendersons, 2 doors down, had been fined in February for a fence stain that had already been power washed before their fine was issued. The Okafors across the street got written up for a trash can left out 11 minutes past the 6 p.m. deadline, timestamped by Karen's own phone. Every single write-up in the last 6 months traced back to one inspector, Karen Voss. And every single one of those homes had one thing in common. None of them sat directly on Karen's own cul-de-sac. Her end of the street, including her own yard, hadn't been inspected once in over a year. According to the HOA's public violation log I pulled from the management company's online portal. I spent one whole Saturday at the kitchen table with a legal pad, writing out names, dates, and dollar amounts in 3 columns while Emma colored beside me, asking why Daddy was doing homework on a weekend. 19 names. 19 fines, ranging from $150 for a mailbox scratch to $600 for a fence color the board claimed was off-palette by 2 shades. Every single letter, when I checked the signature line, traced back to the same inspector. That's when I stopped seeing this as a lawn dispute. This was selective enforcement, and I intended to prove it. I spent the next 2 weeks doing something Karen clearly hadn't expected a dead-grass homeowner to do: research. Colorado's Common Interest Ownership Act, the state statute governing HOAs, requires associations to enforce covenants uniformly and in good faith, and gives homeowners the right to request inspection records for comparable properties when they suspect discriminatory enforcement. I filed a formal records request with the management company on May 3rd, asking for every violation notice issued in Brookstone Meadows over the previous 18 months, sorted by address. It took them 9 business days to respond, and when they did, the pattern was worse than I'd guessed. 18 months, 61 violation notices issued. 58 of them went to homes at least 3 properties away from Karen's own house. 0 notices had ever been issued to Karen Voss, HOA president, 4-time Yard of the Year winner, despite 2 separate anonymous complaints on record about a shed on her property that neighbors said had never been permitted with the county. I called Trish back to confirm the numbers weren't a clerical error. She went quiet on the phone for a moment, long enough that I asked if she was still there. "I'm here," she said. I've never actually had someone request the full log before. Usually people just pay the fine." That single sentence told me more than the spreadsheet did. Nobody had ever pushed back far enough to see the pattern, which meant nobody had ever pushed back at all. I sat on that information for 4 days, deciding how to use it. Rachel wanted me to email the whole board immediately. I wanted something harder to dismiss. So on May 12th, I filed a request with the county's code enforcement office, not the HOA, the actual county, asking for a standard neighborhood compliance sweep, citing the unpermitted structure 2 neighbors had already flagged informally. If Karen wanted inspectors crawling over my yard for dead grass, I wanted them crawling over hers for something a lot more serious. The county responded faster than I expected. An inspector named Diane Castellano called me on May 19th to confirm a sweep of Larkspur Court, and the adjoining cul-de-sac was scheduled for May 27th, a Wednesday. 2 addresses were flagged for priority review, mine based on the HOA's own complaint history and Karen Voss's based on the anonymous shed reports the county had received independently months before I ever got involved. I didn't tell Karen any of this. I just waited. On May 26th, the night before the inspection, Karen showed up at my door again, this time with a printed copy of the HOA's May meeting agenda. "I wanted you to see the board's already discussed a lien filing if the balance isn't paid by June 1st, she said, sliding the paper toward me like she was doing me a favor by warning me. "I'd hate for it to come to that." "You won't need to file anything," I said. "The lawn's been green for a month, you have my emails." "The board makes the final call," she said. "Not me." "Funny," I said, "because every letter has your signature on it." She didn't have a response to that. She just turned and walked back down my driveway in the dark, and I remember watching her go, wondering if she had any idea what the next morning would bring. May 27th arrived cool and overcast. Diane Castellano's county truck pulled onto Larkspur Court at 9 a.m. Sharp and true to the schedule, she split her morning between two addresses, mine first, then Karen's. My inspection took 11 minutes. Diane walked the yard, checked the repaired sprinkler zone, photographed the fully recovered grass, and signed off with a single line on her clipboard. No violation found. Property in compliance. She handed me a copy on the spot, then she walked to the end of the cul-de-sac. I followed at a distance, close enough to watch but not to interfere. Karen met Diane at her own front gate, arms crossed, clearly annoyed at being inspected on her own property for the first time in the HOA's recent history. "This is unnecessary," Karen said. "I'm the one who reports violations around here." "I have a referral citing an unpermitted accessory structure," Diane said, checking her tablet. "The shed behind your garage, can you show me the county permit for it?" Karen's pause lasted just a beat too long. It was there when we bought the house," she said. "Then it would still need to be on record," Diane said. "Let's take a look." What Diane found behind that shed took less than 15 minutes to document and considerably longer to explain. The structure itself had no permit on file. Built roughly 9 years earlier according to satellite imagery the county pulled up on the spot. Behind it, a runoff area the size of a small pool had killed a wide swath of grass down to bare, oil-stained dirt grass that Karen had reportedly reseeded and resodded twice, according to 2 separate neighbors who'd watched landscaping trucks arrive both times. Diane found containers of old pesticide concentrate, automotive fluid, and pool chemicals stacked 3 deep against the shed's back wall. Several rusted through, all draining toward the same dead patch of ground for what looked like years. "This isn't a maintenance violation," Diane told her, snapping photos of the corroded containers. "This is a hazardous materials storage issue, and depending on what's leached into the soil, it may need an environmental assessment before I can even close this file." Karen's face, I'm told by the 2 neighbors who watched from their porches, went white. One of them, Mrs. Alcorn from the corner house, said Karen actually asked Diane, voice tight, "Is any of this going to be public record?" Diane's answer was simple. "County citations are always public record, ma'am, same as the ones you've been writing for the last 6 years." By the time Diane left that afternoon, Karen had been issued a county notice, not an HOA letter, an actual municipal citation for an unpermitted structure and improper hazardous materials storage, with a mandatory soil test to follow. The estimated cost of remediation, if contamination was confirmed, started at $4,000 and had no real ceiling. My lawn, meanwhile, had a clean county inspection and a written statement contradicting every claim in Karen's second letter. I brought both documents to the HOA's June board meeting. I didn't yell, I didn't need to. I stood up during the open comment period, laid the county's clean inspection report on the table next to the HOA's own violation log, and asked one question. Can someone explain why 58 of the last 61 violations went to homes at least 3 doors from the board president's house, while her own unpermitted shed sat unreported for 9 years? The room went quiet in a way I'd never heard an HOA meeting go quiet. 2 board members exchanged a look I understood immediately. They'd wondered about Karen's numbers for a while and never had proof. The HOA's attorney, present for an unrelated agenda item, asked to see the records request paperwork before the meeting even continued, flipping through the 18 months of violations page by page while the room sat in silence. Within the hour, the board voted 5-1 to reverse my fine in full and to open a formal review of every violation Karen had personally issued over the past 2 years. Karen was the only no vote. She was also notably the only person in the room who wouldn't meet my eyes. She resigned as HOA president 11 days later, before the review even finished, citing personal reasons in an email that went out to the whole community. The Hendersons got their fence-stain fine refunded. The Okafors got their 11-minute slate trash fine dropped. 14 other households, once they saw the pattern named out loud, filed their own reversal requests, and every single one was approved. The county's soil test came back 3 weeks later. Confirmed petroleum and pesticide contamination, concentrated enough that Karen was ordered to fund a full remediation, estimated at just over $6,000, with the county monitoring the cleanup for the next 2 years. My lawn is still just a lawn. Green now, unremarkable, exactly the kind of yard nobody ever writes a letter about. But something changed on our street that goes beyond grass. Neighbors who used to whisper about Karen's clipboard now nod at each other with a kind of quiet relief. The new HOA president, one of the Hendersons, sends out one email a month instead of 3 violation letters a week. And the Yard of the Year sign hasn't gone back up on anyone's lawn since, mostly because nobody's volunteered to judge it. Rachel still keeps that sticky note on the fridge. Document everything, it says, a little faded now, but she won't let me throw it away. She says it's a reminder that the quietest kind of power is a folder full of dates nobody thought you'd bother collecting. I didn't win this because I yelled the loudest or fought the dirtiest. I won it because I asked for the paperwork, followed it where it led, and let the truth do something no argument ever could: hold up under an inspector's flashlight. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone dealing with an HOA that feels more personal than procedural, it's this: don't argue with the clipboard. Request the file behind it. Somewhere in every association's records is a pattern, and patterns, unlike arguments, don't get to talk their way out of a room. If this story felt like justice you needed to see today, you already know what to do. Drop a comment with the pettiest HOA violation you've ever been written up for, because I guarantee it won't beat this one, and stick around, because Brookstone Meadows was not the only neighborhood with a Karen problem.